It was May the 1st, 2018, and I was finishing the end of my book, as you talked about earlier, and I was just reading through the last few chapters, and I'd had this really busy 3-year stretch, and I was reading the last few chapters, which was around stepping outside comfort zone. It was around experimentation, and as I was reading this, I suddenly felt this significant dread. And I felt like an imposter, a fake, a fraud, inauthentic, whatever word. And I suddenly there was this miserable feeling. And I remember at the time going, here am I out there trying to help my clients make progress on change that matters. And I'm not doing this myself. I'm not embodying, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. And I remember it. I was actually at this table that I'm speaking from today. And so I knew that I needed to let that percolate. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And it percolated for a couple of months. And then in July 2018, when I'd handed over the manuscript to my editor, I actually thought to myself, I need to make a change or pivot, to use your word, in my life if I am truly going to embody what I'm talking about, and which is, the experiment, stepping outside my comfort zone, and a realisation that actually I was unhappy in my life. And so what I decided to do was to, just before that, I remember reading a quote. You may have heard this quote, which is from Joseph Campbell, an American philosopher, who said, the caves that you avoid have the treasures that you seek. And I remember reading that and I going, oh gosh, that's powerful. Here was I in my life, avoiding the caves of vulnerability, connectedness, self-care, self-love, all of these things. And so I decided my intervention was to take a sabbatical and to take 6 months off. But not only that, to run a series of experiments. And these experiments were to, as we talked about earlier, to take me outside my comfort zone, beyond my frontier of competence, and actually get me into a place of vulnerability and connectedness, both with myself and with other people. So there are a number of experiments. I did stand-up comedy, I did improvisation comedy, I ran a marathon at Mount Everest for my sins. I did meditation. I did meditation in Thailand for sort of 14 days. I did a month of gratitude where I sent out a card to 31 people over a month, expressing gratitude for what they have given to me in my life. But each of the experiments was to really test me around incompetence, because one of the things that I realised, and it goes back to earlier about why people struggle around change, is that competence for me was a mask, it was an armour, and that if I was okay in this world, if I was competent at something. So growing up, if I was competent at sports, I was all right. And then it became more around my work, and I got good at my work, but something was missing as well. And so my journey around these experiments has helped me to be more vulnerable and more empathetic as well, to actually live and breathe. I think the process of change is incredibly important, because I think it does give us this empathy. And so for me to have that as a pivotal experience, and to remember vividly, and I don't know when you've talked to other people about their experiences, but this real visceral feeling for me of shame and self-doubt and fraudulence. And I needed to feel that over a couple of months to give me the sense of impetus to do the work that I needed to do. And that was to take the time off run these series of experiments.
Wow. Thank you. Of the experiments that you did, was there one that you were like, you had a really strong reaction to, negative or positive?
So, look, I would say pretty much all of them had a reaction, but the one that I had the greatest reaction to was running a marathon at Mount Everest. Not every
I
day does
wondered,
someone wake
I
up.
wondered if that might be the one that got the strongest, and I'm curious to find out what it is. But when I heard you say that, I was like, that sounds hard.
No, absolutely. And no one wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I want to go and run a marathon at Mount Everest. So, look, the last 5 or 6 years, I've been a runner. I've never been a runner before that. And I've done a couple of marathons. But I wanted to pick something that would physically challenge me. And I'm an asthmatic, so I knew that being in altitude, it would physically challenge me. And I remember arriving in Kathmandu, and I went via Singapore, and I had a couple of days in Singapore. And I arrived in Kathmandu, and I just had this wave of anxiety that I cannot remember the last time I experienced at all. I don't want to do this. I want to get on a plane. I actually looked at flights back to Singapore, and I'd travel around Asia before I went back there in 3 weeks' time. I even thought about flying to London, and I remember going down to the restaurant at breakfast on the morning we were to leave, and so I was surrounded by all of these Ironman people who'd done ultra distance. You could see the t-shirts on the back. And all I could think about is, what have I got myself into? And what was really interesting is that there was a marathon, an ultra marathon, and a half marathon. I'd actually enrolled in the half marathon. Anyway, I got on the bus and I started chatting to this guy, and he was doing the half marathon. And in the whole bus, there was only two of us doing the half marathon. I looked at him and I thought, I've got this. If he can do it, I can do it. So we eventually got up to the base camp. We had 2 nights of acclimatising. The problem for me in that was that I had a sleeping bag that would have been perfect for an American summer, but
Oh
not
no.
great for -15 temperature because
Oh,
because where the half marathon started was in this beautiful spot of Ding Bosche, where I would have had, big blankets and all of that. So I always knew I was going to be warm, but not up top. So it didn't start good. And then they told us the statistics that the 3 people won't finish this race. Broken ankles, broken collarbones, they might get food poisoning, influenza, all sorts of things. And so I just thought, oh no, everything is working against me. But I remember starting it, and you start at like 7 in the morning, it's -7, you're at 5,400 metres. And for me, all I wanted to do was to run this marathon in about 10 hours. If I could do that, I was okay. And what people don't realise with altitude is you literally, unless it's a supreme athlete, you can run downhill a little bit, but it's really hard to run on a flat. And up a hill, it's impossible. But what I learned from this is that I did it, and I survived it, and it was about 9 hours and 20 minutes. But the thing I learned is that even though I had this enormous anxiety, I knew when I started the race that I could do it. So it goes back to that change before around feeling positive. I felt vulnerable that I might fail. But what I thought was, I went back to my own teaching, which is one foot in front of the other, just keep moving forward. No matter how hard it feels, if you keep moving forward, and I often use the expression, nudging the system forward. For me, I remember at times I'd gone for 7.5 hours or 8 hours. It was starting to get a little bit towards dusk. It was getting cooler again. And I had about 5Ks to go. And all I could, and I was exhausted, I'd hardly eaten, and all I could think about was just keep moving forward. And for me, that is my motto now is, yes, I've got to look back and reflect, but for me, there is an element of no matter how tough something is, just keep moving forward. And the feeling at the end, maybe not right at the end because I did collapse, but the feeling I think when I finished it and had some time to reflect on it was just super proud. Like, I don't often think we give ourselves space to go, yeah, I did that and I'm proud of that. And we should be able to, and you'll know this in your work, celebrating success is an important part of the change process. And for me, looking at those small breadcrumbs that suggest, hey, I'm making progress here, you have to celebrate that. You have to reinforce that. And I think with teams, we need to get better at that as well as we make change. So there's an example of something that had a visceral reaction to me.